All right, we're just going to kick this off. We're going to have everyone introduce themselves, give folks your background, what your company is, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, hello, my name is Max. Well, actually, I'm involved in Bitcoin lending or credit on top of Bitcoin for more than 3 years. We first started with HODL lending, and now we're launching another platform, which is Debify, which is for institutions to start giving liquidity to Bitcoiners across the globe.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maurício. I am the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Ledden. Ledden is a Bitcoin-backed lending company. We have been around since 2018. We issued Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan. We do Bitcoin mortgages and other types of lending. So yeah, I've been in this space for over 5 years now, and very excited to talk sustainable credit.
Yeah, I'm Hubertus Hofkirchner, but you can call me Hubertus the Austrian because nobody can pronounce it. So I'm the original founder of BitCredit Protocol, which was originally conceived as a completely fiatless on-ramp after the Greek monetary crisis when Bitcoin failed to the country failed to Bitcoinize, even though it had a monetary crisis. And in the meanwhile, when I came back in 2022, we discovered that this solution only doesn't solve the problem of missing Bitcoinization in the crisis, but even directly addresses the problem why Bitcoin is not Bitcoinizing in the sense of medium of exchange. So that's what we're about.
So we don't have a lot of time. How many, by show of hands, how many people understand collateralized lending pretty well? Okay, that's a pretty good mix. All right, so we won't address like the basics of collateralized lending. We're just going to dive into it and really kind of hopefully create a conversation here where you guys can engage with each other and work through some of the issues, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that exist in the space. So coming out of the last 4 years, I think the most obvious question to address is when people think about this space, they think Celsius, they think BlockFi, all of that branding of debauchery that took place is what most people, I would imagine, raise of hand, is that what everybody out here is thinking, or at least what your memory of it is? So what are they missing about where it's at today and where you see this moving forward based on where we were in the past?
I don't know how many people know this, but we're actually one of the groups refinancing a lot of the Celsius borrowers out of the Celsius bankruptcy. So we spent a lot of time talking to these people. I think there was so much wrong with the way that lending was done pre-FTX. There was no ring fencing of risk. There was an insane amount of assets that were being taken as collateral that didn't have the proper qualities to be sound collateral. There was no liquidity. There was no depth on those assets. They were taking money that could be withdrawn at any time, and they were investing this in mining projects that had 5-year paybacks. That is a recipe for insolvency, no matter who you ask. So there was a lot that was wrong with lending in the past. And the problem was not so much their activities, but there was no regulatory requirement for them to disclose anything of the things that they were doing. And they had infinite marketing machines with their token printing. So they were basically putting out propaganda and telling people that there were no risks. And lo and behold, there is risk in lending. Every lending product has risk. Everyone here should know that. And it's not about it being riskless. It's about how you are mitigating that risk. And are you being upfront with people on what the benefits and the risks are?
So what you're really getting at is, I've got Mario coin and I want to put that on deposit, but it has liquidity for the next 10 seconds. The liquidity goes away and it's like the Mario coin is zero. And yeah. Okay. So I think we can all agree that there's a couple, one that's presenting itself as something that's depositable as that. Yes, sir.
That's actually, I think, a point which is extremely important. I mean, when I hear the loans which are collateralized by Bitcoin, I really, really get an ambivalent feeling because there's two sides to it. There's, so to say, the good side for those people who, so to say, hold significant amount of Bitcoin because they can use it as collateral, yeah, and get fiat for it. Yeah, I mean, you know, I can use that, for instance, to leverage up, which will help Bitcoin. We all like that. But recently, Christopher Waller from the US Fed says he actually loves what's happening in the crypto world, that they're all going on stable coin dollars, because it helps the US dollar. Now, if we use, I'm not using a harsher word, use Bitcoin to collateralize fiat loans, we are actually helping the US dollar as a medium of exchange. When, so to say, some of us might think that to create the Bitcoin world which cypherpunks want, we actually want Bitcoin to be the medium of exchange and have other assets. So what the solution is to the Greek problem of 2015 is that the collateral for the issuance of a very specific form of credit is the goods and services which are in the economy, which is where the circular Bitcoin economy breaks. We buy sats for Bitcoin, hopefully, for fiat, and then when you spend it, what does the merchant do? Yeah, he has suppliers to pay, people to pay. He converts it back into fiat. So that doesn't make sense. So what we need to do is we need to use the collateral by the goods in the economy, in the supply chain and production chain, to create gold standard tokens, like there were gold standard banknotes, which today nobody appreciates anymore because fiat has perverted the system. We only know fiat banknotes. Everybody knows greenback, but everybody has forgotten what yellowbacks were. So that's why I'm so mixed when I see Bitcoin used as collateral as opposed to real world goods in the economy.
I'm assuming you two disagree with that, so go ahead, Max.
Yeah, answering to your previous question, where we are moving with the industry. So number one, yield products on top of Bitcoin should die. You know, Bitcoin is a yield generating asset. You want to earn yield on top of Bitcoin, put it in a cold card, Trezor, Ledger, forget about it. It's already generating yield, you know? Number one. Number two, non-custodial setup is your best friend ever. Like if you want to borrow, no offense, Maurício, if you want to borrow, use non-custodial setup. There are platforms out there. There are more and more platforms will be, and hopefully those platforms will adopt more and more non-custodial approach. And number three, I think that a very important thing, that institutions are coming as a lenders to directly speak with the borrowers. There's no more middleman needed, in that sense that any bank in the world, presumably very soon, will be able to directly issue a loan to you, and the bank will be able to earn directly without no middleman organizing the deal between you. So these are three things that I envision for the future.
Love it. Maurício, you seem like you had a response to Hubertus.
So to me, I'm from Venezuela, for those who don't know, and I grew up with seeing people being unable to access loans. People in America, just by virtue of being born, they get a SIN number and banks just throw money at them. And that is not the case when you go south of Texas or east or west of either one of the coasts. Your access to credit breaks. Before Bitcoin, when I wanted to lend some money into somebody that was in a different country, there was no asset that I could legally take to lend money into that person. Bitcoin changed that entirely. We service clients from Colombia to Patagonia to Portugal, and every one of those clients can send us the same asset. They get their money in the same timeline, and they pay the same interest rate. That is equalizing access to credit around the world. To me, that is a net benefit to the world and is a net benefit for Bitcoin. I've seen what it has done for my clients, and you can't shake that away from me. So I do think that Bitcoin equalizes access to credit. I do think that it should exist, and I'm proud to be part of what's pushing that.
So yesterday I was moderating one on the other stage, and I asked about the ETFs, and you have the Wall Street banks now playing in this space, and almost like a fractal where we started off with Mt. Gox, and then we go to the Celsius BlockFis that blow up, and now we're going to the next tier or the next stage up with Wall Street banks that are probably going to look at these ETFs. They're going to put those suckers on deposit, and then they're going to borrow and collateralize and do all that type of stuff on top of that. How do you guys see, because I would view what lending has been to date with you guys as being almost like a shadow banking lending system. So how would you compare and contrast you guys to what is now maybe going to start presenting itself in a year from now, a year and a half from now? Is there going to be two markets there? Is it going to be something that you guys start growing more, or are they growing more? Help me understand what that looks like moving into like the next 5 years.
Yeah. I mean, in general, of course, the new ETFs have done a great deal in terms of getting Bitcoin higher up to its proper, natural, true value. That's the good thing. But so many things in the recent developments, it has two sides. Yeah. On the one hand, we knew since the start of Bitcoin, I mean, 4 weeks after the launch, Satoshi wrote to Sepp Hasselberger that the positive feedback loop on Bitcoin will help to gain the attention. At the same time, what the ETFs are doing, they are locking Bitcoin into the fiat system and so to say accelerating the bubble which the fiat system is, which means while it helps Bitcoin to reach its height, these guys could also drop out again. They're not real Bitcoiners. They're not using it like we do. So for me, it's a positive development, but what's actually happening is only a fraction of what can happen if we use credit correctly in the Bitcoin system. What's happening is you have 5% of people who can be investors. Then you have maybe 1%, maybe 2%, which they will route into Bitcoin. So this is 1 or 2% of 5%. But if our goal is to make Bitcoin medium of exchange, ultimately people will realize we can do 100% of world trade, which is $100 trillion a year. So that will monetize Bitcoin and bring it to its true proper value.
Maurício?
So in terms of the ETFs, I think, so not everybody has access to the ETFs. The ETFs are a very North American phenomenon. Those people that are thinking that the ETFs are going to allow you to borrow at 3% from your Wells Fargo account, they're right. But that is available to 300 million Americans. Good luck with the 8.6 billion people that are not there and that all they have is spot Bitcoin. That's where we come in. You can bring me your spot Bitcoin. I'll lend you against your spot Bitcoin. In fact, I like it better than your ETF unit. And what I think the ETF guys are going to wake up to, the group that thinks that you're going to borrow at mortgage rates from your Bitcoin, well, ETF units don't trade 24/7. ETF units are subject to gap risk. Anyone that's had to liquidate someone on a Sunday at 2 a.m. knows this, but not a lot of people have done this for the period of time that we have. So I am very curious to see who will lend against these units, what will be the ratios of the LTVs for these loans, and what will be the interest rates for these loans. And I bet you that we're going to come very close to competing with those rates. And given the chance or given the option of having your Bitcoin and being able to borrow it on an ETF format as spot, and having those be relatively equal, it's not even a choice. So I think it's exciting, and I think it's going to open doors, but the rest of the world is not going to get left behind.
Max?
I don't think that we're going to become a shadowy bankers, let's say like this. I think that like with Debify, we're building infrastructures to those institutions to start lending money using Bitcoin as a collateral. We don't need ETF. Like literally, that's you can keep ETF for your own business. We want a Bitcoin, and we want to prove to the banks that you can lend money and that the Bitcoin is a super collateral, and you need to use that. And actually, Maurício is right. You know, it's highly liquid asset. It's the best asset in the world. You can literally, as a lender, it's important because you can liquidate. If there's liquidation happening, you can go into fiat if you prefer fiat, or into stable coins if you prefer stable coins, any time of the week, any day of the year. You can basically you can liquidate it at any point of time.
How do you guys think about, if I was sitting in your seat and I was trying to do your job, I'd be very concerned about where am I getting my mark to value the loan to value that's on deposit? Like, what is that mark versus all the other exchanges? And then how quickly can I liquidate that mark if it looks like it's coming down to there? from a technical standpoint, how do you guys think through some of those things? To me, it scares the living hell out of me, right? And if I was in your shoes, it would be something that I'd be thinking about all the time. So how do you guys think about this?
So I can speak about a few of the things. So first of all, to your point, there's no central price feed for Bitcoin. There's exchanges. Exchanges have different sets of risks. There could be a spike in one, but not the other. So, over time, the best solution in our view has been to find a blended feed and having complete redundancy around the exchange. So basically an internal best order routing or external best order routing to ensure you're always getting best prices and you're filtering out spikes. So that's like number one. You don't plug into one exchange. That's a big risk vector, right? So that is the sort of mark to market on the LTV. In terms of the depth and how quickly you can act, I think this is where you start getting into, and I would love your view here, Max, and multi-sig versus non-multi-sig, because people often miss that a loan has two clients. There's the person that lends you the money, and then there's the person that borrows the money. If you design a product from the viewpoint of only one of those two, it's going to break in eventual time. So what happens when you have a multi-sig is that Bitcoin moves very, very fast. So the question that comes to the person supplying the dollars is, you're able to sell that, right? Like instantly. If your response to that is, I need a second signature, the following question is going to be, how quickly is that signature going to come? And can it come at 2 a.m. on a Saturday? And if the answer to that is no, then your cost of capital is going to skyrocket. And it may actually vanish. So at Ledden, as much as we love and I appreciate and I value multi-sig, our model is custodial. We have custody of your Bitcoin and we keep it in cold storage, but that is our value prop. That is why we give you the best rates in the market. And that is why our system has worked the way it has for as long as it has.
The valuation problem, which Preston mentioned, is I would say a first world problem. There are probably not really many people around who have enough Bitcoin. Certainly it's going to be a couple who have Bitcoin to actually use that for what's called circulation credit, which is what this gold standard tokens are about. The valuation base is actually completely different. It's not a first world problem. It's actually currently mostly a problem of the poorest countries in the world where trade doesn't work. So in finance, we talk about the so-called $2.5 trillion trade finance gap, where trade cannot happen in poor countries because of monetary restrictions, regulatory restrictions, political shenanigans. So this makes countries really poor. They don't grow, they have no jobs, they have no income. So we're talking about a very real problem, not for a couple of rich Bitcoiners, but really for very poor people. And the valuation problem doesn't really exist there, because when you fund trade, essentially what the collateral is, if I give you, for instance, a bill of exchange and receive some goods in that, the value of that goods is always established because I have the Bitcoin as the unit of account. I issue a bill of exchange in payment, and the value is established by the negotiation by two free market players, a free seller and a free buyer. Once they agree on a price, we assume this is the correct valuation. I don't need to look at any exchanges, and that's the value which is embriefed in circulation credit. And what this circulation credit actually does, and this is very important to understand, these, let's say, gold standard notes effectively represent a basket of goods, which is what central banks, the communists sitting there, artificially try to do, like central planners with the artificial basket of goods by which they measure the inflation, which, as we all know, is not really the truth. So here we are establishing an objective truth evaluation of goods really being exchanged in the economy, which do real good for poor countries which need to get to, let's say, prosperity.
Max?
Yeah, so answering Maurício about multisig. So first of all, on a hodl from our experience, we have 100% success rate because all loans are over collateralized, but that's not the main point. All our lenders prefer receiving Bitcoin. They don't want to exchange it basically to stable coins because, and I'll be honest, some of them really loves when others are liquidated because they will get more Bitcoin. On Debify, there's actually a couple of things that we have figured out and that we're currently implementing. Number one, a lot of our lenders, they hedge their own risk. So basically, they rebuy the same position on an exchange and they hedge that risk from the volatility. Number two, we are building APIs so you can actually insert your multisig at 2 a.m. on a Sunday. And number three, there's a thing called liquidation agents, which for a small fee will hedge that risk, and you will have 48 hours in order to sign the release transaction in your favor. So there's no loss at all.
Amazing. When you guys look to where we're at right now, moving into the future, what is something that concerns you or something that you think might need to be built? You could take it in any direction, something that's important to you moving forward in this particular space that you think the audience needs to be aware of or to know. Yeah, we'll start down. Max, why don't you go first and we'll come down.
Yeah, my main concern is that currently the lending market in Bitcoin is very fragmented, mostly exists in North America, Canada and US, less exists in Europe. So, and actually there's like regions in the world where there's almost no proper lending. So there are a lot of Bitcoiners, but there's no opportunity for them to borrow against their Bitcoin when they don't want to sell it. So my main concern is availability of lending tools across the globe for people in Southeast Asia, in Australia, in Africa, in Latin America, in those regions, not only traditional markets. So that's probably my main concern. And this is what we want to achieve effectively with Debify. So any Bitcoiner can borrow in any fiat or in any stablecoin that he prefer.
Amazing.
My biggest fear is that people don't learn the lessons from 2022. That is going to happen. I think people see the run up that we've seen, and everybody's in here is going to start doing very well, and everybody's eyes are going to light up with dollar signs, and you're going to start seeing these companies saying, "Come borrow from us." We know they're going to raise from some big lame logos, and they're going to show up and say, "We got you now." They don't. Lending against Bitcoin is not like any other asset that has ever existed. It takes time to get it right. It takes time to build it to the size that it needs to get to. And I think that with all the sirens, the Canto de las Sirenas, I'm trying to find the right analogy, but basically you're going to get these siren calls and they're going to try to lure you with incentives and sexy rates and using their newly raised cash to subsidize their...
Is that the canary in the coal mine, is the really high yield? Is that like...
I'm freaked about these triple restaking things and 20% yields that we're starting to see on stablecoins again. That's what I'm starting to freak out about. And I think it won't be too long until some, Me Too company raises some double-digit $1 million round and starts saying we're going to go against Letten because they're doing great. And they're going to start competing with us with an artificial rates, as Celsius did. And they're going to start trying to pay artificial yields, as BlockFi did. And they will inevitably take the same risk trying to compete with us. And that's generally doesn't end well. And when you tell people, please diligence, they don't. My experience has been that when times are good, people don't ask questions. I had people coming to me right before the BlockFi bankruptcy or right before the Celsius bankruptcy saying, Mau, I'm withdrawing cash from Letten. I'm taking it to BlockFi. I'm taking it to Celsius. They're paying me 12. You're paying me 8. And I would say to them, I lend for a living. I borrow my money at 6. I borrow my money from you at 8. I lend it at 11. You can see my posted rates and you can see the difference. I don't know how they're getting 12. You should ask them how you're getting 12 before you take them. It's your money. Did they ask? No. I just got emails back saying I should have listened.
Take us home.
Yeah. I think anything which we are concerned about is also an opportunity. So I think when we had this period last year when the transaction fees raised to several hundred sats per VByte, we got a glimpse of what the future will bring us. And for instance, I was in El Salvador at the time, and we don't have time for any stories now, but effectively at the farmers market, the famous farmers markets which we always have at Sonte Beach, half the people couldn't pay because their wallets wouldn't actually allow such high network fees. So that's a sign of the future to come. On the other hand, the vision, once we have the, let's say, the credit money layer, which is, so to say, backed by circulation credit, we can actually move through a three-tier Bitcoin system where, so to say, the real Bitcoin will be flowing in the economy between producers of real goods, which we can buy, which is our abundance. You will have the retail users, and between those users will be mints, very specialized mints. Today we only know Fedimint and Cashew, which we call debit mints, but there will all kinds of mints. For instance, the credit mints, which BitCredit is building. There will probably be other mints like that. There's already stable mints. And with these mints, we're actually solving already the scaling problem, because these mints are fully peer-to-peer and have essentially unlimited capacity. Now, the great thing about the credit money layer in Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin redeemable credit money, like gold redeemable proper banknotes in the past, is that all of a sudden you can build mints which are non-custodial, which is not possible with debit mints. And non-custodial is from a cypherpunk point of view, the most important thing to protect the Bitcoin system against state interference, which would otherwise happen in credit. It has always happened with credit in the past. Once a bank issues credit, next moment, government comes along and says, oh, you issued banknotes against goods in the economy. Now please issue money against my war bonds. Yeah, and which of course bloats the money supply. So for me, the development of non-custodial mints, which is, as I said, possible with credit mints, is probably the most exciting thing which we are building right now.
All right, give it up for the panel. Thank you, guys.